Today's webinar is how to maximize revenue in a challenging labor market. So as promised, keeping this interactive, I want you guys to jump in here and just let me know if you're having any trouble sourcing labor today. There's a yes or no answer, so grab your mouse, get those answered up quickly. That way we can go ahead and share those results and move on with the rest of it. Oh, wow. Y'all are pretty quick on that. Let's go ahead and end that poll. Looks like we got just about everybody in there, and I'll go ahead and share the results. 100% yes. So, probably why you're all here today. Appreciate you guys, getting in and getting that answered for us. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about now: is how to squeeze the most dollars out of the team, to maximize the revenue on that existing team. Because a lot of the folks that I talk to, I'm in a unique position. I'm a solution engineer over here at BuildOps. My name's Justin Weatherby, if any of you haven't met me before. My background's in construction. I've been field superintendent, project manager, estimator, but for the last 10 years, I've been in the construction software space. And in that construction software space, I get the opportunity to talk to, I don't even know now, maybe 10,000 contractors across the country. And I hear similar things from the ones that are successful, and then from the ones that are struggling to grow. And a lot of folks tell us, hey, we're not able to hire more folks. It's tough getting good people in here. So what we want to do is give the tools, give the resources to those people on staff, so that they can maximize revenue for the business. We're going to be talking about coaching up the sales team, understanding how they can drive additional revenue, being able to take a look at the analytics on the back end, understand what work we should actually be going after, because not all work is created equal. Also giving additional skills, giving additional training to the folks, and providing them tools and technology to help sort of drive that. Talking about what sort of opportunities are there for our folks out in the field that might be selling, understanding the pains, understanding how that communication works back and forth, tracking, identifying those opportunities, and make sure that we're able to identify value for our customers. I talk to a lot of folks, and people will run this range on I'll take something, for example, service agreements. Talk to some folks, they got a bunch of them. Talk to other folks, they don't have hardly any. And the folks that don't have a ton of service agreements usually say the same things to me. Hey, it's just really hard to track and manage those. And sure, if you're using a spreadsheet, or I've seen folks with just binders full of their monthly service agreements, and sort of flipping through those binders and making sure things get checked off, it can be a hassle. But there's a lot of good that can come from that strategy and increasing the revenue from our existing customer base. If we're doing any sort of installations, depending on what trade y'all are in, we might want to sell after that installation a service agreement to keep that equipment, to keep that system monitored and functioning the way that it's supposed to. And a lot of folks will look at that and see the dollar amounts on those service agreements, and not be as interested because they're chasing large contract work. But what some of those folks don't recognize is that those service agreements grow revenue. And those revenues are typically at much higher margins than you have for your new construction contract work that you might be doing. One example that I heard, I think it might have been a Dodge Analytics survey that somebody had put out, that was the dollar amount for every $1 in a service agreement, you should expect somewhere between $3 and $7 of additional revenue coming from that agreement. And why, how? Well, if y'all are running that stuff today, those answers. But if this is something new to you guys, on those service agreements, while we might be out there, changing filters, inspecting belts, all of the other items that might go into a regular service, if there's anything that we're able to identify outside of that maintenance, that's additional pull-through work. And that's additional revenue from the company. Also, because we're might be the maintenance contractor out there and we're out there once a quarter, if they go and add another wing, or they've got another building, another campus that they're spinning up, um, you're going to be the preferred vendor because you're able to build that relationship, provide that value to your customer. And we'll talk about some of that in a little bit more detail. I'm kind of curious from you all. As far as do you guys have a strategy in place, right? A system in place, whether it's through service agreements, whether it's through reaching out and getting additional work from them. I'm just curious, like, do you all have a strategy in place for maximizing that revenue? Because if you don't have a plan and you're not able to, if you don't have a plan, you can't execute to the plan. And if you don't have a plan, then you're not going to know what to measure against. I'll go ahead and wrap this up here and share those results. Two-thirds of folks out there today are looking for, looking for to get a strategy in place. And depending on your specific trade, the specific industry you're in, there's different plays and different plans that you can put in place to increase the revenue on your current customer base. With that said, I mentioned before down at the bottom, there's a question and answer section. If you don't mind, hit that Q&A section and just throw in what trade or what industry that y'all are in. And I could give some examples based on that feedback on different ways that I've seen folks, other contractors in a similar industry, be able to leverage and grow that bottom line revenue. So again, down there at the bottom in the Q&A section, click on that, throw in your trade in here. We got a couple big ones in here on the HVAC side. Bunch of folks on the mechanical side. So I'll go ahead and start there. The biggest one is service agreements. The service agreements are what we call predictable, reoccurring revenue. And a lot of companies these days, just on the demographics, the owners of these companies, who might have started as a tech out in the field and then were able to grow their own company. They're actually, the owners of these companies are actually getting to an age where they need to start thinking about succession planning. What are we going to do with this business, right? Is it going to go to somebody in the family? Am I looking for somebody to come in and take this over? Am I looking for a sale? In either event, to set that next succession up for success, having that predictable, reoccurring revenue that you get with a service agreement, I hate, I hate to be elementary with some of this stuff, but what are these service agreements for? It's for maintaining the equipment. Just off the top of my head, your rooftop units, right? They're sitting out there in the sun, they're getting baked, they're getting rained on, they're getting snowed on, they're getting frozen. They're out there in the elements, and to function properly and get the most life out of those units, they need to be maintained. And when we're talking about building revenue for our company, we need to look at it in the context of building value for our customer. Because whenever it comes to sort of selling these agreements, you're not selling the fact that this is great for your business, this reoccurring revenue. You're selling the value to the customer, and one of those values is to keep to extend the useful life of that equipment. And the best way to extend the useful life of that equipment is through regular maintenance. And it's not a hard thing to sell because the manufacturer themselves recommend this. And so when you're going into putting together a sales program for something like service agreements for rooftop units, chillers, boilers, air handlers, etc. First, if this isn't something that you do already, just go ahead and take a look at the manufacturer's website first, and they'll tell you what items need to be included. Now, obviously I'm here representing Build Ops, and Build Ops has a great tool to help you all do that, track the quoting, and we'll talk a little bit about what Build Ops has to offer. But today we want to sort of talk more about sort of these broader concepts of maximizing revenue with the workforce that we have. We also have couple electrical contractors out there. On the electrical side, I see a lot of folks doing generator maintenance. Whether you installed the generator or not doesn't mean you can't sell a maintenance plan for it. So again, we got to make sure that these critical backup systems, when they are needed, that they are going to have the best opportunity to function. And if these systems haven't been kicked on recently or haven't been checked to see, if they've been maintained properly, there's a high likelihood that when that situation happens, that they need to fall back on a backup generator. I mean, how many times have you heard in the news, something happens, backup generator doesn't turn on, right? It's a disaster. So when you're going in there as an electrical contractor, that's where I see a ton of electrical folks selling their service agreements into. Also, looks like fire sprinklers, right? You're a fire life safety guys. A lot of that's mandated by the state, right? So when I'm talking about a service agreement for a fire suppression company, we're talking about inspection, testing, and maintenance. So number one, inspections. I forget off the top of my head what it is, at least an annual, right? I'm sure other equipment's got different cadences, also depending if it's a healthcare facility or something like that, they might have their own cadences. Number one, on the fire life safety stuff, if it's a healthcare facility, there's something called JCO, and there's other sort of accreditation agencies, but JCO is a big one out there. And basically, if these healthcare facilities don't have the proper accreditation, which part of that accreditation is for the fire life safety systems, if they don't have that documentation in place and they fail one of those audits, they're no longer eligible for here in the States, Medi-Cal, Medicaid funding. So, when we're selling this value to our customers, look at it in terms of their business, right? So we took, we're talking about healthcare, right? If they're not up to code, they might lose the ability to, receive those government funds. Also they could be shut down, by a number of different agencies as well. So they need to be on top of that stuff. But looking at your client and specifically what's their business, if their business is, if we're talking about refrigeration folks and part of their business is food storage, we know what that means. If that fridge freezer unit goes down, they lost their product, depending on, if they're in a like data center type of situation. If the cooling goes down and the temperatures go up, those machines start shutting off, which now it's driving their clients offline. Now, a lot of folks will be running those different types of agreements, but what very few folks that I found are actually doing is going one step beyond the service agreement itself, and selling what I would call like a full service agreement, meaning not only are you going to do the maintenance, but you are also going to cover the repairs as well. Now, I know a lot of folks on this call are probably like, whoa, I don't want that liability. Like, what happens if the machine goes down? You're absolutely right. There's more risk with these full service agreements. But if you're a company that already has a bunch of service agreements in place and you're looking to expand your revenue, in offering full service agreements, not just the preventative maintenance, but covering the repair costs. And of course, the way you put together your contract, super important. You might have a limit in there. There's certain things in there, inclusions and exclusions, that you need to consider. We've got some resources we can provide to help you all with that. So if you want to reach out, after this, we can help you with getting that information. But there's a risk reward factor. A regular preventative maintenance agreement for a big, large campus, 20, 30, 40, $50,000, right, a year for just the preventative maintenance part of that. But if you go into a full service agreement, that's $150,000 a year. Now, there's risk there. And the way you mitigate that risk is going to be by diversifying, right? It's a numbers game. certainly one of those deals, it might be tough to make money on because everything started breaking. But you need to spread that risk out across a lot of your client sites with a lot of these agreements, and it becomes a numbers game. And on those agreements where nothing breaks, that is huge profit back to the company. So even if you have preventative maintenance agreements, 9 times out of 10, I ask folks about full service agreements. They say, no, we don't do it, or maybe we have one, or we tried that a couple years ago, but we never really got into it. I really want you guys to consider that. It is certainly a risk reward ratio there. You're going to be on the hook, but if priced properly, if diversified across your portfolio, the numbers will add up in your favor. And it's huge multipliers on top of that agreement. And once we have whatever, I'm talking about sales in terms of maintenance agreements, full service agreements. But whether it's contract construction, new construction work, whether it's rip and replace, types of installations, either way, we want to take a look at the data. So when that data comes back, you want to know what agreements are profitable and which ones aren't, so that you can make course corrections. You want to understand which customer types are your most profitable customer types. Which customers themselves are your biggest customers, so that you can make sure that they're being, handled appropriately, as a VIP customer to your business. Also, what type of jobs, which technicians. In the BuildOps platform, we're able to track all of that. And there's an old saying that goes, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And that's where this data-driven analytics comes from, is around the, measuring of the data to allow your team to understand what's going on, see trends, and then make adjustments on those trends. And we can talk a little bit about that in the as we get into the platform. Now, I mentioned it earlier, but really, if you focus on the value to your customer, your different revenue growth strategies will become apparent. If you're sitting in a bubble in your office and you go, how can we make more money? That's the wrong way of going about that thinking. You need to look at who are our customers? Who do they service? Now, how can I provide value to them and to their customers? And then that will drive revenue. And then you're going to be looked at as the expert. So when you're giving this information to them on, the impact, the potential impacts to their business, and how you all can provide value there, they're expecting you to provide that information to them. They're not necessarily going to be savvy on the life cycles of certain pieces of equipment, or the regulations required, around their, fire life safety systems. I'm sure some folks are that you talk to, but assume that they're not, and educate them. It's all about education. If you focus on the value of providing value to your customer, so that they can provide value to their customers, and you focus on education, this isn't a sales thing. It's not a sales process anymore. It's just about providing value. And it's a lot easier to motivate the folks on your team who are doing that outreach and are the boots on the streets, or making the dials. It's a lot easier to motivate them when you don't structure it as, hey, I need you to make sales. I need you to make cold calls. I need you to educate our customers. And honestly, when you get that call, put yourself in the customer's shoes. When you get that call of, hey, we got some information for you, we'd like to talk to you about that. You're more likely, they're more likely to take those calls and spend that time with you. Because if you're not immediately showing them that you're a valuable resource, that you have insight that needs to be shared with them, and that you can help provide value to their customer, they're not going to cut out the time to talk to you. So, first of all, you're trying to get that top of the funnel stuff. And we're going to talk about some of those tools to track opportunities, to track the sales cycles on your quotes. And don't forget that your technician out in the field is actually your best salesperson. And, painting with a broad brush, historically, salespeople and technicians have different skill sets. But if we go back to what I just mentioned about education and providing value, and if you think of it in that context, then absolutely your technician is the most knowledgeable, right? He's there, he's seen it, he has the background, he knows. And if he surfaces these additional opportunities to you folks back in the office, or to the customer directly, and then followed up on from the back office, we're going to get a much higher probability of closing there. Looks like we got some landscaping folks in here as well, pest control. I would basically just go back to the same sort of thing, providing value to your customers. And to make your team efficient and to be able to give them the opportunity to provide those insights back to the management, we need a process in place. And that process is usually driven around technology. I've talked to a lot of folks. The majority of them really don't have systems in place. I'm sort of curious here with our next poll question. With what you all have today, as far as the tools, the strategy, the workflows, is that something that's working well for you, that you see a big opportunity for improvement? Again, I want to try to keep this as interactive as possible, but we got so many people in the room today. I can't turn on your microphones. It'd just be chaos. So this is the best opportunity sort of through that Q&A section, as well as here on the polls. We'll go ahead and wrap this thing up and share the results. This is not uncommon. 8 out of 10 of the people I talk to are looking for a better mousetrap, a better way of creating, monitoring, and executing on their opportunities to maximize revenue, because you can't just throw more bodies at it. The bodies aren't there. You need to take the bodies that you have and give them the best opportunity to drive more revenue. So sort of switching gears a little bit here, instead of talking about this at a high level, kind of want to show you some of the nuts and bolts on, how we can get this done. We definitely prefer to meet, if y'all are interested, to meet with you one-on-one, to just talk about your specific workflows, take you all through a tailored demo, and be able to answer your specific questions and how it might apply to your strategies that you guys have in place today. But here at a high level, there's a couple major functions, right? One is going to be reporting, 2 is going to be field office communication, and 3 is going to be ease of use. If it's easy to use, my field and office can communicate, and I can report on it, that's going to be 90% of the boxes that I need to check at a high level. So with that said, walking through just sort of a typical day in the life, these opportunities are going to come to you one of 2 ways. Either you're reaching out to a customer, or call comes in, or you're out on site and you can surface this additional work to them. We'll talk about all 3 of those. In either event, if this phone call is coming into the office, or I'm in the office doing outreach, first thing I need is like a customer profile, customer record, and most systems out there are all driven off of like lists and tables, and you go to like a table and you search the table, etc. What we're going to be doing here is using like a Google search in BuildOps. So if I'm looking up a customer, I can either look them up by the contact info, the contact's name. I can look them up by their site address. I can look them up a number of different ways. Of course, I could type in the customer's name, and we do what's called a fuzzy search. So if you notice up here at the top, I'm a carpenter by trade, and I guess not a very good one, because over the years I just pounded my thumbs flat. So I'm not good on the keyboard. Even if I fat finger this stuff in here, as long as I'm in the ballpark, it's going to return results to me. And much nicer than a lot of the other programs out there, especially the older ones. If you put a space in the wrong spot, it's like that customer doesn't exist. You now create a duplicate record, and you've got this whole issue of needing to merge and all the data in 2 separate spots, etc. So while simple in function and in practice, the search and making it very powerful is really going to help on the operations side. So, if I pop into a customer record, I can do a number of different things sort of to track different opportunities for this customer, to track notes on this customer. Here the Scripps Medical Group, you can see I've got what we call tags. So I can tag this customer. It's also got customer types. And those tags and types allow me to sort and filter and report on different customer types, customer tags. I can also keep notes at the customer level, and it lets me know who added the note, when that note was added. I can also add a bunch of custom fields to the customer record as well. So if there's other things that you want to track, lead source, last follow update, these are just my examples, but don't let my examples sort of pigeonhole the functionality of it, because it's even more robust than this. Also, I can keep any sort of attachments in there. So, if there's sort of credit app or, insurance certification I want to keep at the customer level, I can do that as well. And, whenever we get into, let's say we want to create an opportunity and track that opportunity, we're going to do that in our quote module. And when I pop into the quote module, I can either do this from the customer record, or I can do that right from here as far as, creating a new quote. You can have different statuses of quotes. So, different types of quotes. You might have a quote type called lead. And that's something that y'all are following up on, taking notes on, follow-up dates, email history, around maybe like specific work that needs to be completed, and understanding where that's living in its life cycle. Basically, I'm just going to come in here and throw something in real quick, just to show you at a real high level. Basically, what we're doing here is we're going to be, we're going to be tracking this information. We're going to be able to come in and, put in different information as far as, when's this quote due, who's the salesperson, and, start tracking it against, win rates and sales by, sales by rep, etc. But kind of like the function of this is basically we're going to take whatever information, I didn't put a lot in here, but we're going to take whatever information that you all have and pump it into your guys' proposal template. And then we're going to send this off to your customer. Now, we talked about a couple different ways we can get to this step. Phone call comes into the office, we hop in here, we look it up, etc. We might be chasing down work, right? In which case, we're putting in notes at the customer. And when we finally do make contact with them and do get something that they're going to allow us to quote for them, whether it's a service agreement or an installation or some ground up construction that they're doing, then I can come into here and, capture that as a draft quote, run that quote through its different processes, track those at every step along the way, so that I can understand, when are these quotes due? Have they been sent to the customer yet? Has the customer opened the email? Have they viewed the attached quote? So we're able to see how our customers are interacting with the quotes that we're sending them. And that will help drive our follow-up. And a lot of this follow-up is going to be driven off the reporting dashboards that we'll chat about in just a minute. One of the other major ways that we go about capturing work is for our folks out in the field. I mentioned before that they can be our best salespeople. And if you're not leveraging your technicians to sell work for you and incentivize them to sell work for you, you're missing a big opportunity. And when we're talking about, limited bandwidth on the labor side, we need basically every person in the company to be able to let the customer know what services we offer and be able to relay that information, back to the office and back to the team if there's needs there. So for our folks out in the field, let's say I log in, I see a list of the calls that I'm scheduled for the day. So, hey, I need to come in here and fix the thing. Pop that visit open. Down here below is where I'm filling out my report. And I'm skipping a lot of this and going right into what we call recommendations. So our folks out in the field can actually create what we call recommendations. They can tie it back to a specific piece of equipment, not a requirement, but y'all can do that. What's the recommendation? We need to change the motor. description, right? Put in additional notes. They can add pictures, they can add labor line items, they can add material line items. Y'all might have a form that you want them to fill out. In BuildOps, we have a custom form generating engine built into our software so that y'all could create whatever sort of forms you need, specifically here on the quoting side. And when they save up that recommendation, it's going to alert somebody in the back office, right, that this recommendation's been added, and it's going to hit the recommendations table here in the back, and we can see which of these recommendations have been quoted, converted into work, and then finally closed out. And basically, these recommendations, you can create these in the office as well. These are like opportunities. So this is one step before the quote, where I can take one or multiple of these recommendations and roll it either into a new quote or add it to one of my existing quotes. A lot of times this information is coming back to the folks in the office via text message, via email, via phone call. It's hard for them to organize it. We'll just call this repairs. It's hard for them to organize it. But this gives everybody a structured process to stay within, so that we're able to make the most out of those opportunities and convert as many of those opportunities as possible. If you look at something like this, right, we're gonna the pictures came over, right, the different items came over as well, and then again, they could have done some pricing on their side, or we could do some pricing on our side, and then move that over onto our proposal template. And you can choose what level of detail the customer is going to see. That's what I just did there. Change that up a little bit. And so those line items, any of that pricing information will come right from the field. Let the estimator, let the sales guy review it, and then be able to pump that information out to the customer. And ultimately, once this thing's approved, convert it and get it back to the technician out in the field. Now, we can't really talk about process without talking about reporting. A BuildOps has a full business analytics engine bolted directly on top of our SQL database. So if that information's in BuildOps, dates, dollars, amounts, contact, whatever's in there, as long as that's in our database, we can start reporting off of that. And I come into this reporting dashboard not so much to show you like, hey guys, these are the reports that you want. I'm coming in here more generically on this is the type of reporting that we can do. These reports are customizable. These dashboards are customizable. You can have many, many different dashboards. You can have many different reports. You can set up automated distribution of this information. So if you wanted a list of all your open quotes and all, your aging quotes, the ones that haven't been followed up on in X amount of days, and you want that sent to the sales manager every morning at 7 a.m., no problem, we can do that. So while you can come into BuildOps and view this information live, we can also set up an automated cadence so that we are transmitting this to you, at an appropriate day and time, right? Is it weekly? Is it monthly? Is it daily? Totally up to you, depending on the information, and then who is that information going to. So we can, talking about the reporting that we can do, we do what we call scorecards. Basically, you got a number, whether it's a total, whether it's a percentage, we could surface that up to the team. Also, up here at the top, we can install custom filters. So right now, this is a date filter, but if you want to filter it by customer type, if you want to filter it by location, if you want to filter it by job type, something like that, we can install multiple custom filters at the tops of these dashboards, so that right from the dashboard yourself, you can start at the high level and then drill down into the details. Now, that comes into play a little bit later down below. We can, do some expanding reports as well, but we can also apply filters in whole to entire dashboards. So you don't have to filter each of these reports. You just change it once, change it across the board. If you're looking at something like a closing rate, you all might have sales goals, sales targets. This is a great way to drive urgency amongst the team, and accountability. We should be setting goals. and understanding how we're trending against those goals. Now, this is something you'd probably, probably pay, $39.99 for and go into a class, like a management class. But to be honest with you, make your goals realistic. It's better to set the goal low. I'm like looking around like I shouldn't be telling you this, but you should set the goal low so that the team can hit the goal. Because it's the morale and the momentum that reaching your goal has, will in and of itself build that momentum and drive the team forward. So don't put your stretch goals in here. I mean, you can, right? You put whatever number you all want in there, but just on the management side, make sure you get a number that they can hit, because you want to make sure that these tools aren't having the adverse effect and demotivating the team, because you go a couple months without hitting your number. Now you start questioning, right? Questioning your skills, as a professional. So keep those numbers realistic, make sure they can hit them. Even if you need a little bit more out of them, keep it low, let them hit the number, because that will build momentum in and of itself. We can give this data to you in a line chart, a bar chart. What's the round one called? Pie chart. We can also do heat mapping. So points on a map, regions of a map, so that to help visualize, this data. Now, ultimately, basically, this data is being fed off of, from a database, a spreadsheet, and we can give it to you in a table spreadsheet sort of view as well. Again, we can, split this up by rep, by customer, by department, by region, whatever y'all need to do. And we can also build in some drill down reporting as well. So maybe you start with some high level numbers, and then you drill in, sort of deeper and deeper, sort of down the path there. One thing that makes us unique from other software companies out there is our ability to not only present to you the data that we have, but to allow you to insert custom calculations into those data sets. And this should look pretty familiar. You all have used Excel before. Basically, you got your different columns, you got your pivot table up top, but we can actually insert a column into our database. And by inserting this column into our database, I can start doing calculations. So like, let's take this column, divide it. I don't know, this isn't going to be great. Divide it by this column, right? Multiply it by this other column, and then cut the whole thing in half. So if I'm not doing these calculations inherently in my system, we can provide you a tool. Well, within our tool, you can also insert your own custom calculation. So I don't know if y'all caught that, but curious if this looks familiar to anybody out there. Keeping an eye on the question and answer side, we talked a little bit about the mobile app and getting information from the field to the office and vice versa. We talked about proposal, bid management, quote management, talked about customer management, as well as some of the reporting side. I'd be happy to answer any questions that y'all have. The best way to do that's in the Q&A section down below. Feel free to hop in there, throw in any questions that y'all might have. If it's anything that I covered, any broader questions, happy to do so. As we're waiting for those to come back in, I want to leave you all with a little bit of information on how to get a hold of us, etc. And also let me know if if y'all are interested in learning more about what we offer. Our contact information's out there. You can follow up with our team. Get some time scheduled. I think it's the best way to go about it. One-on-one time where we can walk you through, answer your specific questions.